what is the most guarded secret inside the Vatican archives? We're told it's just ancient letters and lost gospels. But what if the truth they are hiding is actually the biological reality of human history? A chilling story has captivated millions. A forgotten Catholic priest making one final, earth-shattering deathbed confession to his bishop. He claimed that deep in the jungles of the Belgian Congo, he encountered and baptized a living giant, a towering relic of the old world. But before we rewrite the history books based on a viral internet rumor, we need to trace this deathbed confession back to its source and uncover exactly how a massive piece of alleged history simply vanished into thin air. Over the last few years, a massive digital campfire has been burning. Between 2022 and 2024, platforms like TikTok exploded with a single captivating narrative. The story claims that during the brutal colonial era of the late 19th century, a lone Catholic missionary ventured deep into the unexplored Belgian Congo. There, he allegedly found a remote tribe protecting something impossible, a massive humanoid giant. Moved by faith, the priest supposedly baptized this towering creature in secret. At the time, the Congo Free State was viewed by the Western world as a mysterious, dark frontier. What if this uncharted jungle actually provided refuge for the survivors of a lost race? Today, we're witnessing a massive clash of realities. A dedicated online community is presenting newly surfaced vintage photographs as absolute proof that these giants walked among us. On the flip side, mainstream historians and biologists outright dismiss the entire narrative as an elaborate modern fabrication designed for clicks. To understand whether this baptized giant was a genuine historical anomaly or a modern digital phantom, we first have to look at the undeniable laws of biology and the meticulously kept records of the colonial Catholic Church. Let's talk about the hard science first. There is a fundamental principle of physics and biomechanics that stands entirely in the way of a 20 or 30-foot humanoid, the square cube law. Formulated by Galileo way back in 1638, this mathematical law dictates exactly how physical structures hold up under the relentless force of gravity. As a shape grows in size, its volume and therefore its overall weight grows exponentially faster than the cross-sectional strength of its supporting structure. Think about human bones. If you take a normal man and scale him up to be 3 times as tall, his bones only become 9 times stronger. But here is the fatal flaw that you won't hear on viral videos. That same giant would weigh 27 times as much. Evidence suggests that a humanoid of that immense size would literally crush itself. Their skeletal structure would shatter beneath their own sheer mass the moment they tried to take a single step. And then there is the biological nightmare of the cardiovascular system. A normal human heart could never generate the immense hydrostatic pressure required to pump blood to a brain 30 feet up in the air. Basic biology tells us this creature would have collapsed long before it ever reached the river to be baptized. But what if biology, as we are taught it, is incomplete? Some researchers believe that mainstream science deliberately ignores biological anomalies that don't fit neatly into the accepted Darwinian timeline. So, let's set aside the physics and look directly at the historical paper trail. During the late 19th century, Catholic orders like the Jesuits and the Passionists operated extensively throughout the Belgian Congo. These missionaries were absolutely obsessive record keepers. Beginning in the 1880s, they documented every minor detail of their remote jungle missions. They meticulously logged daily diary entries, marriages, local indigenous customs, and most importantly, every single baptism. If a rogue priest had truly discovered a towering giant in the deep jungle and performed a holy Catholic sacrament on it, it would be documented. A frantic deathbed confession regarding an ancient relic of humanity, delivered directly to a bishop, would generate a massive ecclesiastical paper trail. Yet historians who study the Vatican secret archives and the accessible colonial logs from the 1880s to the 1920s have found absolutely zero mention of this extraordinary event. There is not a single diary entry, no hidden baptismal certificate, and no encrypted letter letters warning Rome about a race of massive beings hiding in Central Africa. Skeptics of the official narrative are quick to point out a chilling possibility. What if the church intentionally scrubbed those archives? Imagine if acknowledging a giant meant unraveling our entire accepted understanding of human evolution. Wouldn't the Vatican have a vested interest in keeping that evidence buried deep underground? It's a fascinating theory, but we are still left staring at a massive unresolved contradiction. If biology says giants physically cannot exist and the Vatican archives have absolutely no record of this baptism ever taking place, then where exactly are all these undeniable vintage photographs coming from? When you scroll through your feed and see that quintessential viral image, the massive muscular figure towering over tiny men in pith helmets, it stops you dead in your tracks. The sepia tones are perfect. The film grain looks authentic. It feels like you are looking directly into a forbidden, forgotten past that authorities desperately want to hide. But when we take a forensic, pixel by pixel look at this undeniable proof, the illusion begins to fracture in spectacular ways. Let's break down the physical evidence, starting with what we'll call Photo 1. This is the image you've likely seen plastered across hundreds of videos detailing the priest's alleged confession. At first glance, it is terrifyingly real. But if you zoom in on the hands of the colonial figures, the factual reality becomes glaringly obvious. You'll see colonists with 6, sometimes 7 fingers seamlessly blending into each other. You'll notice pith helmets that don't sit on the head but literally melt into the wearer's skull. The lighting casts shadows in 3 different directions at once, and the background jungle foliage dissolves into nonsensical, blurry geometric shapes. These are the undeniable, telltale artifacts of early generative AI tools like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, which hit the mainstream right as this story went viral in 2022. But what if there's a reason these AI images are resonating so deeply? Some researchers believe that while these specific photos are modern fabrications, they are merely recreating suppressed historical truths that the public subconsciously remember. Are we using AI to invent a myth, or are we using it to reconstruct a reality that was stolen from us? Even if we dismiss the AI generations, we still have to address Photo 2. These are the images that AI detectors pass as 100% authentic, unedited historical photographs, and they ARE authentic, but they have been weaponized through the deceptive art of recaptioning. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, traveling circuses frequently utilized clever camera tricks and forced perspective to make tall performers look like towering behemoths. Furthermore, we have documented medical anomalies. Individuals suffering from severe pituitary gigantism, like Robert Wadlow or John Ayson, were heavily photographed in the 1920s and 30s. Content creators simply take these genuine historical archives, strip away the original context, apply a vintage filter, and falsely label them as Congolese giants discovered in 1898. You are looking at a real photo, but you are being fed a completely fabricated narrative. But what about the smoking gun? What about the actual deathbed confession, Document 1, where our dying Catholic priest supposedly whispered this dark secret to his bishop? Videos often scroll a block of text across the screen, claiming it is a direct transcript from a hidden Vatican diary entry. When linguists analyze this text, the historical red flags are immediate. The language used in these viral posts heavily relies on contemporary sentence structures and modern narrative tropes. A Belgian missionary in the Congo Free State during the 1890s would have written his official logs in formal French, Flemish, or ecclesiastical Latin. They would have used highly specific religious phrasing and colonial terminology. Instead, the viral confession reads exactly like a piece of modern internet creepypasta written by someone whose first language is 21st century English. Yet, we have to ask the lingering question. What if the modern text we see on screen is simply a clumsy, modernized translation of a very real, suppressed original document? If a priest truly tried to blow the whistle on a biological impossibility, wouldn't the church immediately confiscate the original Latin manuscript and replace it with total silence? The photographic evidence crumbles under forensic scrutiny, and the alleged diary entry points directly to modern digital authorship. But the sheer volume of this evidence and the viral speed at which it spread isn't just a random internet fad. While the photographic evidence crumbles under scrutiny, the sudden viral spread of these images isn't just a random internet fad. It is deeply tied to a massive, overarching conspiracy theory that claims our entire modern timeline is a lie. While the photographic evidence of the Congo giant crumbles under scrutiny, the sudden viral spread of these images isn't just a random internet fad. It is deeply tied to a massive, overarching conspiracy theory that claims our entire modern timeline is a meticulously crafted lie. Have you ever heard of the lost empire of Tartaria? Some researchers believe that until the mid-19th century, a highly advanced, peaceful, global civilization spanned the Earth. They call it Tartaria. This empire supposedly harnessed free atmospheric energy, utilizing the very architecture of their magnificent cities as massive electrical conductors. But look at the mainstream history books today, and the word Tartaria is nowhere to be found. Evidence suggests this entire civilization was intentionally destroyed and buried in a cataclysmic event known to theorists as a mud flood. This wasn't a natural disaster. It was allegedly a deliberate reset, engineered by a cabal of modern elites to hoard power, steal ancient technology, and completely rewrite the past. But how does a lost global empire of free energy connect to a solitary priest in the Belgian Congo? It all comes down to the timeline. The Tartarian reset is heavily theorized to have occurred between 1850 and 1920. This is the exact window when the world's elite was scrambling to map the last unexplored regions of the globe. It perfectly overlaps with the scramble for Africa and the brutally violent era of King Leopold II's Congo Free State. Was this sudden rush of colonial expansion actually a massive coordinated cleanup operation? What if the armies of the late 19th century weren't just conquering indigenous tribes, but systematically wiping out the last isolated strongholds of the old world? The timing is incredibly suspicious. The very decade the Catholic Church was setting up remote missions in the deepest jungles of the Congo is the exact moment the Tartarian world was allegedly being erased. And this brings us to the most crucial piece of the Tartaria puzzle, the architecture. Look at the grand, oversized, neoclassical buildings found in abandoned cities worldwide, from remote Russian outposts to early American capitals. Notice the incredibly high ceilings, the massive heavy doors reaching 20 feet into the air, and the sheer, impractical scale of the stone steps leading up to these ancient capitals. Mainstream historians tell us these were built purely for aesthetic grandeur, but some researchers believe these structures weren't just built to be beautiful, they were built for giants. In Tartarian lore, giants were not mythological monsters or biological anomalies. They were the original, prominent inhabitants of this global empire. They supposedly walked side by side with regular humans before the Great Reset, building the impossible megalithic structures we still marvel at today. If you look at early colonial maps of the Americas and Asia from the 1500s and 1600s, you often see specific regions explicitly labeled as territories of giants. But suddenly, by the dawn of the 20th century, they completely vanish from the historical record. So, why the Congo? Think about the sheer logistics of hiding an entire race of colossal beings from modern humanity. If a global reset wiped out the giants in the civilized centers of Europe and the Americas, where would the survivors logically go? They would retreat to the most inaccessible, unmapped places on Earth. The dense, unexplored, impenetrable jungles of the Congo Basin would be the ultimate refuge for the last surviving remnants of this colossal race. Under a jungle canopy so thick it blocks out the sun, hidden from the advancing mercenary armies of the New World, a handful of these ancient builders could have easily survived. What if the last priest didn't just stumble upon a freak of nature or a localized genetic mutation? What if he found a living, breathing survivor of the old world? Put yourself in the muddy boots of that Belgian priest in 1890. You are thousands of miles from civilization, surrounded by the horrific atrocities of the colonial rubber forces. You are brought by a native tribe to a secret clearing, and there, towering above the canopy, is a remnant of an age before the mud flood, a being whose very existence defies everything you were strictly taught in seminary. To baptize this creature wouldn't just be an act of faith, it would be a recognition of their shared humanity, a secret covenant between the new world and the old. It's a romantic, terrifying thought, but it also perfectly explains why the Vatican would supposedly go to such extraordinary lengths to bury this specific deathbed confession. If the Church publicly admitted that giants survived into the 20th century, the entire carefully constructed narrative of human evolution would collapse overnight. The existence of a Congolese giant would be the ultimate smoking gun, proving that the Tartarian Empire was real and that the reset truly happened. happened. This is exactly why millions of people cling so fiercely to these stories. They aren't just looking for a cool monster myth, they are desperately searching for validation that our history has been stolen. But we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. If a global empire of giants truly existed and was wiped out just over a century ago, the amount of physical effort required to erase them from the archaeological record would be astronomical. Which brings us to the alleged modern cover-up. If the giants were real, where are the bones? If a race of colossal builders thrived just a century ago, the Earth should be absolutely littered with their remains. So where are the massive skulls? Where are the towering fossilized femurs that should be the centerpiece of every natural history museum on the planet? According to Tartaria researchers, the answer lies in a meticulously coordinated global suppression campaign that has been operating for over a century. The narrative claims that massive, trusted institutions, primarily the Smithsonian Institution and the Vatican, act as the ultimate, ruthless gatekeepers of human history. Some theorists believe these organizations deploy covert teams to global excavation sites, swooping in under the cover of darkness to confiscate anomalous skeletons. Look at the countless local American newspaper clippings from the late 1800s detailing the unearthing of massive 8-foot skeletons in ancient burial mounds. Where did those bones go? Theorists argue they were quietly purchased, boxed up, and shipped to the Smithsonian, never to be seen by the public again. What if thousands of giant bones are currently sitting in subterranean vaults beneath Washington, D.C., or Rome, hidden away to protect our fragile evolutionary timeline? It's a compelling, cinematic idea, but when we look at the hard, documented reality of modern anthropology, a very different picture emerges. For decades, extensive biological and archaeological surveys of the Congo Basin have been conducted by international, independent research teams. Scientists have painstakingly mapped the region's biodiversity, cataloging thousands of species in one of the world's most dense, unforgiving ecosystems. Yet, in all these rigorous expeditions, the largest primates ever documented in the region remain the eastern lowland gorillas. We also have to consider the environment itself. The Congo Basin features highly acidic rainforest soils which are notoriously hostile to long-term bone preservation. Even if a giant died there, its skeleton might dissolve over a century, but a civilization of giants would leave behind massive stone tools, colossal weapons, and structural foundations. Despite decades of digging, soil sampling, and satellite ground-penetrating radar, researchers have found absolutely zero physical evidence of giant artifacts hidden in the underbrush. The archaeological record of Central Africa is rich with complex human history, but it simply does not support the biological existence of 30-foot titans. But the believers of the Tartaria myth have a modern counter-argument for this total lack of physical proof. They claim the cover-up is happening right now, directly on your screens. If you spend enough time on these fringe forums, you'll constantly hear creators complaining that their giant videos are being intentionally shadow banned. They point to restricted view counts, disabled comments, and deleted posts as undeniable, modern proof that the global elite are actively silencing the truth. They wear these platform warnings as a badge of honor, claiming that if the history was truly fake, the authorities wouldn't try so hard to censor it. But what if this digital suppression has absolutely nothing to do with protecting the secrets of a lost Tartarian empire? The mundane reality is that these content creators are not being targeted by shadowy Vatican agents or elite historical syndicates. They are simply running headfirst into the brick wall of modern software. What they call a global conspiracy is actually just automated fact-checking algorithms deployed by tech companies to limit the rapid spread of demonstrably false AI-generated disinformation. When a system detects a six-fingered priest, inconsistent shadows, or a physically impossible skeleton, it automatically flags the post. It's not a coordinated historical cover-up, it's just basic code doing exactly what it was programmed to do. The institutions aren't hiding giant bones, the algorithms are simply hiding fake pixels. But this raises a much deeper, more unsettling question. If the evidence is entirely digital and easily debunked, why are millions of people so desperately eager to believe in a suppressed history of giants in the first place? The viral success of the Congolese giant isn't just about a fascinating photograph. It is a glaring symptom of a much larger, unsettling modern condition. We are living through an era of profound and rapidly growing distrust. Millions of people look at established academic and scientific institutions and feel a deep sense of betrayal. When you lose faith in the official gatekeepers of truth, every historical narrative becomes suspect. What if the history they taught you in school was just a carefully curated script, a narrative designed to make you feel small, powerless, and completely compliant? This psychological void creates the perfect breeding ground for the Tartaria conspiracy. It offers a grand, magical alternative where humanity was once magnificent, towering, and deeply connected to the earth. But there is a much darker, far more cynical reality driving this modern mythology. The primary beneficiaries of the last priest story are not brave whistleblowers risking their lives to expose the Vatican's hidden archives. They are anonymous content creators quietly sitting behind glowing screens, cashing in on your natural curiosity. The business of fake history is incredibly lucrative, and these narratives are ruthlessly optimized for modern, fractured attention spans. This is the engagement economy in pure action. Every click, every angry debate in the comments, and every shared video generates direct, quantifiable ad revenue. They aren't selling you a suppressed truth. They are selling you outrage and mystery, packaged perfectly into a highly monetizable 60-second vertical video. We have officially entered an era where seeing is no longer believing. Just a few years ago, forging a convincing historical photograph required genuine skill and hours of meticulous digital painting. Today, anyone can type a prompt into a generative AI model and instantly create a high-definition relic of a world that never actually existed. Imagine the software running constantly behind the scenes on your favorite social media platforms, desperately trying to filter out the noise. The battle for our historical reality has shifted. It has moved from the archaeologist's muddy trench to the cold, sterile world of software engineering. We are no longer just unearthing history. We are actively manufacturing it, uploading it, and monetizing it before the truth even has a chance to put its boots on. So, where does that leave the viral tale of the dying Catholic priest and his miraculous baptism in the Congo? Evidence suggests this entire narrative is nothing more than a 21st century digital fairy tale. It is a modern Frankenstein monster of a story, meticulously stitched together from dark colonial history, biological impossibility, AI-generated imagery, and the sprawling Tartaria conspiracy. The verdict is clear. There are no 20-foot giants hiding in the Vatican's subterranean archives. But what if the runaway success of this myth proves something equally profound about who we are today? We are a species desperately starving for magic, for mystery, and for a world significantly larger than ourselves. We want to believe the map hasn't been completely drawn and that the shadows still hold ancient, suppressed secrets. Perhaps the real giants aren't hiding deep within the impenetrable African jungle after all. They are the massive digital myths we collectively build and share to entertain ourselves in an increasingly mundane world. Now, I want to hear from you. Did you fall for those AI-generated photos when they first crossed your feed? What other hidden history theories or internet mysteries do you want us to investigate next? Sound off in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to help us keep uncovering the truth.